Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to do something a little, well, a little different. We are turning off the soft lighting. Usually when we dive into religious sermons, especially when the topic is the holy month of Ramadan, the vibe is very meditative.
Right. It's usually about inner peace, reflection, silence, that whole retreat from the world aesthetic.
Exactly. Hushed tones and patience. But the source material we have today, it is the complete sonic opposite of that. It is loud, it is aggressive, and it is essentially a physical and spiritual throwdown. We are analyzing a transcript of a speech by the late Allama Qadim Hussein Rizvi.
And just to set the stage for you, if you aren't plugged into South Asian religious dynamics, Rizvi wasn't just a preacher. He was the figurehead of a massive socio-political movement in Pakistan.
Yeah.
And it was centered entirely on this concept of Ishq-e-Rasul.
Which translates to love for the Prophet. But, and this is key, we are not talking about a passive kind of love here, are we?
Not at all. In his lexicon, ishqi is this intense, consuming, almost volcanic devotion. I mean, firebrand is the word the media usually use to describe him, but even that feels like an understatement for this specific speech.
Yeah, this isn't a gentle reminder to fast.
Right. It's a series of gauntlets thrown down at the listener. He challenges their physical stamina, their historical knowledge, and even their geopolitical loyalties.
And that's our mission today. We aren't here to take a side on the politics or the theology. We just want to unpack the worldview behind the shouting, to understand the internal logic of this specific source. Like, why does he think writing a book in 7 hours is a miracle? Why does he compare a believer to a moth?
And why does he think getting a visa to Europe is an act of spiritual betrayal? It's a fascinating look at what I'd call a theology of friction. But let's start right where he starts, with the body.
Yeah, let's get into it, because this first segment is just wild. He opens the speech, not with some abstract theological argument, but with a feat of physical strength. He tells the crowd that during the last days of Ramadan, he performed a specific act of worship involving the Quran. Break this down for us. What exactly is he claiming he did here?
So he claims that in a single rakat, which is 1 unit of the Muslim prayer, he recited 7.5 paras.
Okay, we need to pause and contextualize that for you if you don't know the terminology.
Mm-hmm.
What are we actually looking at here in terms of time and effort?
Right, so the Quran is divided into 30 paras, or chapters. He's saying he read a quarter of the entire holy book.
In one standing position.
Exactly, in one standing position.
And a normal rakat usually takes, what, 2 or 3 minutes?
Maybe 5 if you're really taking your time. But reading 7.5 parts of the Quran, that involves standing, without moving, without sitting, without breaking focus, for hours.
Hours. And he says he did this while praying behind an imam.
That's the claim. He says, I finished it, then read another, then another. And then he drops this line where he says, Allah gave him the ability to read the whole Quran in 1 rakat.
Physically, that sounds agonizing.
It is supposed to be. And that is precisely the point. He's telling the audience, I stood there and I endured this. He's establishing his authority through suffering, basically saying his devotion isn't theoretical, it's in his legs, it's in his back.
And he uses that authority to just immediately pivot and attack the audience. It felt very aggressive reading the transcript. He doesn't say, hey, I did this, maybe you should try it. He says, you keep dogs.
Yeah, you keep dogs as pets, but if I challenge you, can you read the whole Quran in 1 rakat?
It's such a weirdly specific comparison. Why dogs? Is there a hidden meaning there?
It's a cultural signifier, for sure. In this specific conservative context, keeping a dog inside the house is often seen as a sign of westernization or a lack of religious hygiene, prioritizing a pet over ritual purity. He's creating this binary.
Right, like an us versus them.
Exactly. On one side, you have the soft, modern Muslim seeking comfort, mimicking Western lifestyles. And on the other side, you have him standing for hours in agonizing devotion.
He really leans into this weakness angle when he talks about Taraweeh, too. Those are the extra night prayers during Ramadan.
Correct. And there's this age-old debate in Sunni Islam. Do you pray 8 units or 20 units? It's a legalistic debate that scholars have had for centuries. But Rizvi reframes it completely.
Right. He doesn't frame it as a legal issue at all. He frames it almost like a gym workout.
He does. He frames the 8-unit crowd not as people with a different theological opinion, but as people who are just lazy. He openly mocks them. He describes the mosques emptying out after 8 units.
The image he paints is hilarious if it wasn't so scathing. He talks about the mosque committee members panicking because everyone is fleeing the building. He literally says, you run away like you're disabled.
Very harsh language. But it serves his core thesis. For Rizvi, Worship is endurance. If it doesn't hurt or if it doesn't tax your body, it doesn't count. He's arguing that love isn't some warm, fuzzy feeling in your heart. It's the ability to stand on your feet when you want to collapse.
He says, with what face do you call yourself a lover of the Prophet if you can't even stand for 20 rakats? It's an identity test.
And he backs this up with history. He brings up Imam Abu Hanifa, the founder of the Hanafi school of law, which is the dominant school in that region. He claims Abu Hanifa established the 20-unit tradition because he prayed behind the Sahaba, the companions of the Prophet.
This is important because he's establishing a lineage.
Precisely. He's not just saying, I'm tough. He's saying, I am part of a historical chain. He traces the practice from the Prophet's companions to Abu Hanifa, to Imam Bukhari, down to himself. He's positioning himself as the guardian of a chain that the lazy modern audience is breaking by running home to watch TV.
Speaking of this chain, this leads to what I thought was the most visually striking part of the speech. He tells a story about a scholar named Ahmed Raza Khan Barelvi, who was often called Al-Hazrat. And this story, honestly, it sounds like something out of a magical realism novel.
It's a defining legend for the Barelvi movement. The story concerns a book called Adalatul Makkiyah.
Right. The setup is a scholar named Maulana Ziauddin Madani asks, how did Al-Hazrat write this book? And Rizvi's answer is incredible.
He claims Al-Hazrat wrote this massive scholarly text in Arabic on a highly complex theological topic in just 7.5 hours.
While sitting in the Haram in Mecca, with no reference books, no library, no internet.
For a scholar, writing a citation-heavy book without a library is already impossible. Doing it in 7 hours is the miracle. But listen to how Rizvi explains it happened. This is the key insight into his world. He describes a vision.
He says the Prophet Muhammad and his cousin Ali were physically present in the vision.
Yes, and not just them. He mentions Sheikh Abdul Qadir Jilani, who is one of the most famous Sufi saints in history, and he's acting as a bodyguard.
A spiritual bouncer.
Essentially, yes. Rizvi quotes Jilani saying, I will not let my disciple be naked, which in this context means exposed or vulnerable to distraction. The image he paints is that Jilani stood guard to ensure no one disturb Al-Hazrat, while the Prophet effectively dictated the knowledge directly to him.
The quote is, the Prophet was speaking and Ahmed Raza was writing.
Think about what that does to the listener. It turns the book from a piece of academic writing into a divine artifact. Rizvi is telling his listeners that you don't just follow these scholars because they were smart guys who read a lot. You follow them because they had direct visual access to the Prophet. They were in the room.
It creates this massive barrier between the speaker's heroes and the audience. He's saying, you guys can barely finish a prayer without complaining, but these leaders, they have the Prophet on speed dial.
It reinforces a very strict spiritual hierarchy. You don't question these leaders because they have absolute access, and that access demands total submission from the follower.
Which brings us to the core concept of the speech. The word ish. We usually translate it as love, but in this context, it feels heavier, it feels dangerous.
It is dangerous. Ishq here isn't romantic or soft, it's totally consuming. To explain this, he breaks down the slogan, labbaik.
Labbaik is what pilgrims say during Hajj, right? Meaning, I am here or at your service.
Right. But Rizvi gives it a grading system. He says, if you say it once, it's for the moment. If you say it twice, it means, I am here until Judgment Day.
And if you say it 3 times?
He says it implies the servant is already present in paradise. It's a mechanism of belonging. By chanting this slogan, he's offering the audience a way to bypass their own weaknesses and connect to that eternal service. But, and here's the catch, you can't just say it, you have to prove it.
And this is where the transcript takes a much darker turn.
Yeah.
He brings in the story of Ghazi Ilmuddin.
Yes. Ilmuddin was a historical figure from the 1920s who killed a publisher for printing a book that was considered blasphemous